We're living in a time where people feel very overwhelmed by their relationship to their digital devices, and I for one was feeling like I was less and less in control. That was until I read Digital Minimalism by Newport. Hi, my name's Harry, I'm a teacher living in Hong Kong, and on this channel I discuss ideas from books that I read, podcasts that I listen to, and anything else that crosses my mind. This video is a bit different because I've asked some of my friends on YouTube to contribute with their own tips and suggestions for how to manage our relationship with technology, so thanks very much to everyone who contributed. I definitely needed to read this book. Sometimes I would reach into my pocket, pull out my phone, and I'd be on Instagram before I even noticed what I was doing. It was like a twitch. My brain had built a reflex to scroll. Technology is a massive part of my life. I use my phone, iPad, laptop, smartwatch, Kindle, headphones, earphones, camera, smart lights, and smart speakers every single day. I'm definitely a pro-technology person. But despite all this, I'm extremely wary of my relationship with technology, and I really don't want to tip the balance from me using it to it using me. Over the last few years, I've tried a lot of different ways to limit, reduce, or control the amount of time I spend on digital products. I've tried a social media detox, I've tried deleting all social media apps from my phone, I've tried switching back to a brick phone, I've tried apps that restrict certain websites. From all of that experimentation, I've learned that I feel a lot better when I use technology less. But I also know that tech forms an integral part of my daily life, and one that I don't want to lose. I'm basically aiming for what Newport describes as digital minimalism. Digital minimalism. A philosophy of technology in which you focus your online time on a small number of carefully selected and optimized activities that strongly support things you value, then happily miss out on everything else. In this book, Newport recommends a 3-stage process to achieving digital minimalism. The first stage is a digital declutter. So Newport recommends a 30-day digital declutter in order to reset your relationship with technology. And after reading this book, that's exactly what I did. Step 1, digital declutter. Okay, so a complete digital detox can be very tough. Our personal lives, professional duties, and family commitments are so intricately intertwined on our digital devices that it's difficult to ever be truly free of technology for fear of missing something urgent. A call from a family member, an important work email, a breaking news story. The key, according to Newport, is to divest yourself of what he calls optional technologies. That means any device, service, application, or website that you could ignore for 30 days without disastrous consequences. The key here is to be honest with yourself and separate those things that are truly essential from those things that are merely convenient or habituated. This digital declutter period is essential for resetting your judgment. Addictive behaviours cloud our judgment when it comes to these devices and services, making them seem far more important than they really are. Step 2. Reclaiming your non-digital life. So the next step to achieve digital minimalism is to move from the negative to the positive. You've taken something away from your life, i.e. all optional technologies. Now it's time to add something in their place. Newport has a few ideas of things to reclaim now that your life has been digitally decluttered. And the first is solitude. So most of us suffer from something that Newport calls solitude deprivation, which means we don't actually spend any time alone with our own mind. Many of us have almost no time in our days when our brain is free from input from other minds. This was pretty mind-blowing for me because as soon as I read it, I knew that I was a massive culprit of this. I read whenever I'm sitting, and I listen to some form of audio content whenever I'm walking, traveling, doing housework. Pretty much any minute of my day is filled with input from one source or another. This definitely applied to me. So it's important to reclaim some of this solitude because it helps us to think through and process all the things that we experience and to formulate our own thoughts and opinions. Taking some time without stimulation and constant input allows us to really better understand ourselves, and it even makes us value our relationships more. This time is also perfect for reclaiming true communication. We often feel like we're keeping up with people's lives because we follow their updates on social media, we leave the occasional like or comment, but this is really a superficial means of maintaining any relationship. One thing Newport recommends is setting up actual office hours, almost like you're a college professor. He tells this story about a CEO who told all of his friends and family that he'll be free from 5 to 6 p.m. every evening as he commutes back from work. And after they all got used to that idea, he received a phone call almost every day around that time from a friend or a family member. And that kind of deeper catch-up has got to be more enriching than simply like clicking like on a friend's anniversary photo or something like that, because you're really taking the time to go into depth with someone and maintain a relationship. Upgrade your leisure time. Having a rich non-digital life means having leisure activities that are rewarding. That can mean joining a group, exercising, building or repairing something, or writing. Basically, a high-quality leisure activity depends hugely on your interests, but it ought to be something challenging and something that you can be proud of. Personally, my bar for a good leisure activity is something that I can get measurably better at over time, like an instrument, a language, or a sport.
So one of the most important concepts that I took from Digital Minimalism by Newport is this idea of cultivating high quality leisure. So I knew that when I deleted Instagram, Facebook, Gmail from my phone, I was going to get bored and there were going to be times where I had nothing to do and I needed to replace those distractions with something meaningful, or I was just going to slide back into those bad habits. So what I did is I created a leisure plan as Cal recommends in the book. And I'm really interested in music, and I want to learn how to code as well. So I took these goals, and they can be anything, and I put some structure around them, I put some details into them, and I put some timelines on them. And that gave me something to do and something to aim towards. Instead of just sitting down, scrolling through Instagram, I could make progress towards these things that turn out to be way more meaningful and enjoyable anyway. It's not always the case, it's not foolproof, but that gave me a lot more direction, and it's been really helpful in staving off those digital distractions.
We fill so much of our time with low-quality leisure activities, like watching Netflix, which are passive and don't really lead anywhere. Instead, Newport recommends that you schedule in your low-quality leisure time so that you're in full control of the amount of time you spend doing these things. Now, there's nothing wrong with a bit of low-quality leisure time, but personally, I think you should schedule it in and stick to the schedule that you've made, because for most people, it becomes a sort of default activity that can just swallow up huge amounts of your time. You know, you get home from work, for example, you switch on Netflix, and you can unintentionally lose several hours of your day without really noticing. Step 3. Reintroduce select technologies. So, you've eliminated most of the distracting technology from your life, and you've used the space that it freed up to construct a better relationship with yourself, your friends, and your family. And you've even found some rewarding, non-digital hobbies that you can be proud of. Well, now is the tricky bit. How can you reintroduce select technologies in such a way that they don't creep back to their previous levels of domination? This can look slightly different for different people, but here are some tips from the book, from my own experience, and from a few friends.
One issue that I've heard many people have is spending too much time on the phone before bed. Something that has worked incredibly well for me is not using my phone as an alarm clock. I just use something else. A physical alarm clock, a smartwatch like this one right here, anything really. Now, the main rule is, when you go to bed, make sure that you place your phone as far from your bed as you can. You can place it across the room, or maybe in another room, that'd be even better. The important thing here is to add friction to use your phone. If you don't have your phone in your bedside table and you only have a book, then your only choice is to read or to sleep, because there's really nothing else that you can do.
Get a dumb phone that does the basics like messaging and calls without all the bells and whistles. This isn't something that I can use every day, as I rely too much on Audible and podcasts, etc. But I often switch my SIM card to this device on a Sunday so that I can be more present and enjoy my day more.
So with digital minimalism, the only thing that I've really tried is actually just not checking my phone in the morning until we've either ready to go or we're all kind of sat down with breakfast, kind of whatever's important in the day. That's the only thing that I actually actively tried to do, but what I've noticed recently is actually I'm reaching for my phone a lot less, and actually I'm even calling it out in the moment and just being like, okay, well, why am I picking up my phone? Oh, it's just to pass time. Well, why am I passing time? There's things to do. And then go and do them. So actually it's having a more positive effect than I actually imagined.
Delete social media apps from your phone. I've actually found this one works really well because it combats that natural reflex to reach into your pocket and just begin scrolling for no reason. You can still log onto the apps through your web browser, but it takes a little bit more effort, and that's just enough to stop it from being your default activity. I've also tried the tactic of deleting social media apps on a Sunday evening and then re-downloading them on a Friday evening, so that I just have them for the weekends. And this works pretty well too. It's also really important to have different social media accounts for different purposes. It's really easy to kid ourselves that we need a certain application on our phone because it's the way we get our news or because we need it for work or something like that, but really we know deep down that it's just a form of low-level entertainment. If you need a certain app or service for work, make a work account so you're not kidding yourself.
So one of my key tactics to use my devices less is to have separate devices for separate activities. This might sound contradictory to have more devices in order to use them less, but let me explain. I have one computer that is dedicated to work and creation, and that is all I do on there. There's no games, there's no Discord, there's no leaning back and watching YouTube on hours. And on the other hand, I have a laptop I can put wherever I feel comfortable, and I usually use it to watch YouTube, play games, and connect with friends. And having those two devices kind of tied to separate activities or areas of your life really helps you to jump into action to do one or the other and not get distracted by the other activity. And the same is true for email. So I would recommend everybody to have at least 2 email addresses, one for productive and important communication and one for newsletters and any kind of online account that you might have. That way you look at one to do stuff and the other one for like infotainment or like, shopping experiences or anything like that. It's something I can highly recommend to try out, and it's definitely a more advanced tactic in order to have separate devices. It is definitely worth it.
So there's an outline of the 3-step process in Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. Now it's pretty vague and it's going to look different for different people depending on your lifestyle, your job and your existing relationship with technology. But for most of us, I think that our quality of life will be massively increased by an overhaul of how we use these digital technologies. I'd been experimenting with digital minimalism for years before I read this book, but it definitely helped me to understand the core principles of building a more sustainable digital life. Whether you have your own strategies for managing digital devices or whether you think that technology only plays a positive role in your life, I'd love to know about it, so leave a comment down below. Thanks to my contributors for making this video extra special. You can find their YouTube channels down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.